There we go. And we're live. Hello, everybody. I am Lexi Green, and welcome to another edition of Self-Publishing Insiders. I am our social media manager. I am here with my wonderful co-host and friend, Lissa, and we are here with a friend of the show, friend of Draft Digital, friend to authors, Jamie Davis. Hello, Jamie. It's wonderful to have you on here.
Hi, it's great to be back. I think I was on a couple of years ago with a Find Away Voices audiobook topic, but it's great to be back. I watch your show all the time, so it's great.
We appreciate the support. We love to have a fan who is a friend. But for those of you who don't know, Jamie Davis is a nurse, retired paramedic, author, and nationally recognized medical educator who began teaching new emergency responders as a training officer for his local EMS program. He loves everything fantasy and sci-fi, and especially the places where stories intersect with his love for medicine or gaming. Jamie is also the conference director of the Author Nation conference event that will be running from November 11th to 15th, where he and the team are in charge of all the behind-the-scenes logistical details. For those of you who don't know, Author Nation used to be 20 Books Vegas, and they are now preparing for an exciting new conference, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. But for now, Jamie, I want to kind of talk about you. Could you let us know a little bit about your journey? Obviously, from being a nurse, being a retired, from being an EMS instructor, to where you are now as an author and a pillar of the publishing community.
Yeah, well, pillar, I don't know. Maybe I prop up things here and there. But
like a pillar.
Like a pillar. Okay, fair enough. About 10 years ago, I was dared by a nurse colleague of mine to write a book for NaNoWriMo in November. And I'd never heard of NaNoWriMo before. So I started looking into it. I'm like, sure, I'll do this. And I was a journalist at the time. I wrote a lot of words every month. How hard could it be?
How hard was it?
It was hard. But I'm not the type of person to give up, and I hammered it out and got my word count in and came in at like 53,000 words with a complete-ish story, that eventually became my first book. But it was that was the thing that kind of pulled together my backgrounds and love for fantasy and my paramedic background into a story that was essentially about paramedics who treat supernatural creatures. And that was my first series. So
I do love the way that you took your kind of passion in life. And was that a good way for you to transition from what was it like journalism, nursing, obviously very like nonfiction kind of base?
I do feel like there's a journalist to novelist pipeline. Like we have had quite a few journalists who've become novelists.
Tell stories. We the best way to get a news story across is by applying some narrative functions to it, to relate the story to people in a way that makes sense to them. And you have to tell the story of the news item. If you can't do that, you won't connect with the readers. I mean, if it's just a list of facts, you're just writing bullet points.
That's true. You know what? That's fair. Like, I think we don't think of journalism as like creative writing sometimes, and that's a flaw in how we look at good journalism. Now, like obviously, your nursing, your EMS career clearly play a critical role in your author career. So, like, how does your background as just like a nurse, as someone who like helps people for like a career, for a calling, how has that informed your time as an author?
Well, I think one of the things that it's informed me in mostly is that I still feel very much a sense of giving back and helping others, because I didn't get to the point where I have 50 plus books and I can write full time and all the things that I do now without a lot of help from a lot of very kind authors along the way who taught me a lot. And so my nursing self, my helper identity is very present in what I do. I'm always willing to spend a few minutes talking to somebody and offering a point of view or a hint to go in a certain direction if they need a little, suggestion or something. I'm happy to do it because, like I said, I didn't get here by myself at all.
And then obviously now that you're part of Author Nation, do you think that is part of what led you to being part of like this group of like creating a place to create connections and help authors develop and create a community between authors?
Yeah, and I think that's why I was drawn originally to the 20 Books conference, and then when Joe Solari took over, he asked me to stay on as conference director. I had been working as an assistant to Craig Martell earlier in the previous conference, and he asked me to stay on. Joe asked me to stay on, and one of the things he told me was, we want to, we're going to create something new, but we want to maintain this custom of helping each other and lifting each other up. And that's something that's very important to me. So he, it's kind of like he had me at hello in that sense.
We love to hear that. Like, honestly, I've been one of the few times I've gotten to go like a really big conference was one of the 20 books, and that was my experience, was authors being there, helping authors, like connecting with people from different walks of life and different stages of their authoring careers. So I think that is the kind of experience that I'm glad we're still going to be getting with Author Nation. That is exciting to me.
So now that we've heard a little bit about Jamie, would you like to talk about our topic today, which is book launching?
Yeah.
So you came in looking to talk to us about helping authors launch in the black using non-traditional tools to reach out and fund their books. So we did, before the show start, get a comment that, for the record, Gil, we are not going to be robbing banks to fund our books. For any federal agents who might be a fan of the show, this is not part of the plan. So that is, it's thinking outside the box, which is thinking that we do love. But we're gonna leave the banks alone this time. But I would like to know, in terms of preparing a book launch, obviously that's a huge part of finding success as an author. So when it comes to funding a book launch, what could authors be doing to put themselves in a position for success?
Well, this all came about because I had a recent series that I launched, my latest series, and book one launched in the black, and it's the first time I've ever had a book launch in the major stores, as where on day one I was profitable. And that's something that not a lot of authors can say. And it's not because I sell a ton of books at launch. I make enough to work full time, but I'm not making enough to retire to the islands somewhere. So it takes a lot of hard work to launch a book and continue to market my series and do those things. And what I had done with this series that was different was kind of start thinking about how I could pay for my books along the way. And I got a lot of help from a lot of people. Like I said earlier, I ran a Kickstarter campaign that was very successful for the 3-book series, the first 3 books in this series, that got me started and basically covered my editing and my covers. And so all I really needed to do was cover some of my proofreading and marketing costs, coming up into the launch. But Kickstarter is not the only way to do that. There are other things that we can do. And since I've done that Kickstarter, I've started working on a subscription model to give people early access to some of my writing. There are lots of different ways that you can come up through the process of your book, from the very first inkling of an idea for a story all the way through publishing. That can be ways that you can monetize that idea. And that's kind of what I'm excited about, is that this was new to me. And so when I talked about that, I posted something about it online on my launch day, and Mark Lefebvre, said, "Hey, we need to get you on the show about this." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I guess I can do that."
Yeah, we love Mark for that. Now I do love the notion of taking the subscription services, taking Kickstarters, things that let you kind of connect with your potential reader base and give them, like, do you feel like by giving your readers a chance to invest in your story and in you as a creator, that like you're creating a stronger like base of interested readers, of people who are going to be more like proselytizing of your book to other people?
100%. And I think that one of the neat things that the Kickstarter platform in particular brings is I've done 2 Kickstarters for my fiction books at this point. Each time I've had more people come on board as backers than the previous one. And yes, it's just 2, but I've seen that in other authors' campaigns and heard other authors talk about it that have done far many more campaigns than I have done, that each campaign builds upon itself, that you get new backers, plus your old backers are right there with you. And I think that that's what makes Kickstarter a great option, even for somebody who's just starting out. I mean, think about it this way. Even if you could just make $500 on, a prospective book idea, that would be enough to cover your editing costs maybe, or a nice book cover at that price. So you're already on the road to paying off that book. And if you add in some of the other ideas that I've come up with, I think that, and these aren't just my ideas, other people have been doing these, I want to stress that this is not my, idea. This is cobbling together a lot of things. But, you can do things like a serialized platform where you share, a subscription model where you share your draft chapters with your super fans, for a small fee every month. And then you take that and you put it together and you get the book done and in first draft mode, and you go in and start a campaign like a Kickstarter where you try to fund the cost of a new cover and your editing costs and other things. You bounce out of that. And another thing I did was a month before my release on the stores, I put everything up on pre-order on Amazon, and I'm wide with this series. And then I also made it available on my own web store a month early. So people could buy direct from me. And basically, that money came into my bank account every day. And it wasn't huge amounts of money, but I was starting to train my readers to come to me and pay me directly. And so people who were my really big fans were happy to support me that way. And I talked about why I did it and why I changed the way I was selling books. And then I launched on the stores. And I had pre-orders up, and I pushed the pre-orders for people that just wanted to buy in the stores they were used to buying from. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when the pre-orders landed on day 1, I was like, whew, I'm clear.
Yeah.
And that was just such a huge relief that I had never felt before, launching however many other books I've done over the course of my career. They've always been in the red, and I've had to scramble and scrabble to make sure that they became profitable at some point.
Yeah, and that, I think that's not an uncommon author experience. Like, a lot of those early book releases will tend to need time to kind of recoup the initial investment costs. I do think you mentioned, obviously, like selling a month early on your site, and Lissa immediately said pre-sales. It's worth noting to authors who are with Draft to Digital, Smashwords does have an option that you can set your books up. Once you have like your whole file, once you have everything ready, you can set your book up for pre-sale. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a pre-sale skeptic, and then I did a book release, and there is something about getting those sales that come before the release date that give you a sense of confidence. It's like, oh, good, I'm not completely just out of my depth here. Like, there's something here, and yeah, just it's starting to feel that recoup of like the costs. Like it is good. It feels good to see money be coming in.
And I didn't even know that was an option. So I'm like mentally like putting that on my list to like, okay, Smashwords, pre-sales, got it. Because I think anywhere that you can help people get books early, readers love getting a hold of something they've been waiting for, even a few days sooner than expected.
Mm-hmm.
And so something like that, or offering it on your website, or doing a Kickstarter where they can get it. I mean, and that was the hardest thing about writing this series and doing it this way, was sitting on 3 books for a year. That was hard. I mean, I wanted to get them out there, and only 112 people had read the books.
So I want to ask you, I don't want you to give away any of your secret sauce or anything, but can we talk a little bit more specifically? Like, obviously, you have your own website if you're directing people to your own website for your own pre-sale situation. You said you've run Kickstarter twice. What you mentioned subscription sites. Would that be like Patreon, or is there Royal Road or anything?
Yeah, I use Ream for my subscription.
Ream.
I've been happy with the features that they have. It's based on fiction, fictionalized content. So I'm happy with it. I'm not burning down the world with my income from that, but it is some income, and every little bit counts in my book, and I'm slowly building a following there. But
and I've also found the more eyeballs you can get on something, the fewer errors get through. So if you can kind of democratize your alpha beta readers through subscription services, that's yet another way to get a better edge.
Royal Road is a great option for people that just want to get eyeballs and generate readers, generate fans. There's serialized platforms like Wattpad, Royal Road, and others, Radish, whatever, name them. I mean, there's a gazillion of them now. But find the one that's right for your genre, and consider putting some of your books out there, one of your books or whatever out there as you write it, chapter by chapter, as a release model, to get fans and get them into your series and get them into your ideas, and build them to then come follow you, whether it's on a subscription platform, or come get on your newsletter for your website, or just come get the rest of the books on the regular stores.
So, and you mentioned having 3 books ready to go, sitting on them. Were you planning to rapid release? Like, is that your Kickstarter plan?
I did. My releases, I think I set the schedule to be like about 45 days apart. So I released the first book in May. The next book came out the beginning of July, or the middle of July, and the next book's coming out in September. And I'm finishing up book 4 now and getting ready to launch the Kickstarter for book 4 at this point. And so that'll come out next spring. But the Kickstarter backers can get it early. And I'm hoping by having 3 books out there that I'm going to have a lot of fans that might want to read book 4 before anybody else gets a hold of it. So there's an opportunity there for certain backers, certain readers, to become Kickstarter backers and get extra perks and extra fun and stuff.
I mean, so obviously it's difficult to sit on books that you have written and you want people to see, but like, it is a truth that the phrase, one of the best ways to promote a new book is to have another book, to have that like backlog of books that can get people interested and engaged. But I think that a lot of authors feel hesitant, or like they struggle with finding their readers. I think a lot of people just think about social media as the be all end all of like trying to get yourself out in front of readers. I think it's good to realize that there are other platforms that you can find your readers on. There's ways that you can get your writing in front of people and amass that attention that maybe just a Twitter account or a Facebook page is not necessarily going to immediately get a bunch of people invested in your progress as an author.
I'm sorry. I was looking at the comments and then it came in at the end of that. So was there a specific question, or I apologize for
Alexis,
that.
you're rambling.
No. It is the ADD author in me that was like, oh wait, there's a shiny column over here where people are talking.
No, yeah, believe me. No, but she is also right. I am rambling a bit, but I think it is the notion of like how to do a book launch when you haven't when you're starting out like is obviously a bit of a different challenge than when you're a prolific author. You have 54, I believe we settled on novels out, so that does give you kind of a base of readers that you can depend on and that you can kind of cater to. Do you think that there are specific strategies for authors who are still in the early stages of their career
Okay.
that they should be looking at for a book?
I can TLDR this for you. How do you start from zero?
How do you start from zero? Good question. Well, first off, I want to say I started from zero. So, we all did. At some point, every author out there starts from zero. And I think that's important to remember.
But I will say starting from zero today, different from starting from zero in 2012.
It is.
Absolutely.
It is. But there are also platforms now to help you build a readership. We talked about Royal Road or Radish or Wattpad or whatever that you can put content up on for free and find readers and build a readership on those platforms and work to shift them over to other locations where they can follow you. And so, there are lots of different ways. And I think there are some authors out there who are making really great money going to the local farmers market and getting a table, and selling books there. So there are ways to build readers, one reader at a time. And if you can go to the farmers market and find 5 new readers a week, at the end of the year, that's what, 250 readers that are fans of yours that come back and look for you for the next book.
It's also worth mentioning you should do what you don't hate doing, because like I would hate that. I would hate going to the farmers market.
Well, no, and some people do, but I'm just saying there are people that are thinking outside of the box and finding ways that fit with their personality and their sensibilities. I have friends of mine that are authors that are almost exclusively selling signed paperbacks. And they're doing it from their website, and they're making it very personalized, and they've built a readership that way. So there are lots of things you can do when you're getting started, but it really is about building one reader relationship at a time. And it might be that first person who takes a chance on a new author in the Amazon store and leaves and finds your website and sends a nice comment there for you. And that's your first reader. Cultivate that relationship. Hey, thank you so much. I hope if you like the book, share it with a couple of friends. I'm brand new. It's okay to say that. I think sometimes they're just happy to hear back from authors. I can't tell you how many of my readers sit there and go, but Jamie, you actually talked to us. And I'm like, well, that would be rude if I didn't.
I think we live in a time where because of the creator economy, people do like to invest in people. And it is nice for a reader to be able to have some feeling of connection with authors. I know that Mark Leslie Lefebvre, one of our most favorite people, has the strategy of kind of working with local libraries to kind of put his book out there as a product of his region, because people do like to invest in local authors. They want to connect with people that they know. So I think that you're right, that there are a lot of ways that you can find readers if you're playing to your strengths, looking for readers where they might be. Now, obviously, you've had many book launches over the course of a 10-year, 50-plus book career. And we've talked about some of your successful ones, some of the ways that you've launched books that have gone really well. But we also, as authors, learn from not failure, but things that didn't necessarily go to plan. Have there been book launches in your past that you've kind of learned lessons from because something didn't work, or like something didn't seem to play out the way you were hoping it
Yeah, I've launched the crickets before. The book blurb, the covers, for whatever reason, I thought it was a great idea for a series. Nothing. I have, I think, 7 or 8 series across those 54 books. There are 3 of those series that I don't even try to market anymore. I mean, they're there, and I have readers that find them and say, "Hey, these are great books. You never talk about them." I'm like, "Well, you and the other 50 people that like that series can get together sometime." But I've tried and tried and tried and can't make a connection with those books for whatever reason. I didn't hit the right tropes. I didn't hit the right, the right ideas in writing the story. It just didn't connect. And sometimes you have to cut and run and just say, I've got to do something different. And that's hard. That is so hard. I have a series that's been begging for an ending, but I can't justify taking 2 or 3 months to write the ending and publish it, because it would just be throwing money away. And that's a hard business decision to make when you're a creative person and that it's hanging over your head. And I think at some point I'll probably finish it somehow, but maybe I can make it end in a short, a longish short story or novella or something. But, that is a hard lesson to learn. And it is difficult to stomach that, oh no, people don't like my reading anymore. And I had those thoughts.
At what point, like, how do you make that discernment? Like, is it at book 3 if you don't see a return, or if you never hit black on your series? Or
I tend, before I started doing what I'm doing on the current series, I would say I'd commit to writing 3 or 4 books, try to write it in a story arc that has some sort of an ending, and see how it goes when I get to book 3 or 4, to make a decision on whether I keep writing. What's been the pickup, or, am I seeing increased readership over books from books 1 to 2 to 3, those kind of things. It really takes pulling off that creative hat where you love your characters and you love your book and you love your story premise, and putting on that, accountant's visor and saying, leaning forward and looking at the hard numbers and making a decision that it doesn't make any sense for me to spend $1,000 on covers and editing and everything else that I'm going to spend to write another book in this series. And
especially with
that's hard to do.
The personal creative investment, like the mental burden of finishing out a book is a lot. So it's hard to take all of that knowing it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, we're very possessive of our creative endeavors, and just the notion that sometimes you have to abandon your babies is a tough lesson to learn, and it's a tough thing to stomach.
Supposed to kill your darlings if you're a writer, right?
Well, yeah, but my thought process has changed a little bit on that with what I did in this current series, and I'll tell you why. If you start off writing on a serial platform, like for instance Railroad, and you're doing great and going along, you're getting good engagement, people are reading your chapters, and you get to a chapter and all the comments are bad, and people stop reading beyond that chapter, or reading dries up after that chapter. Well, guess what? You just saved yourself the cost of a cover and an editor and everything else, and where you went off track.
That's true. And then if you ever want to go back to that project, that's where you have to.
Right. And I don't even say abandon it at that point. Go back to that chapter, look really hard at what you did, look at the comments you got, and say, oh, okay, they didn't like, this didn't meet the trope expectation for this type of genre of what these readers expected. And it seems universal, and I'm going to go in a different direction. I have a great author friend of mine, and she recently made a change to the end of one of her books because there was such outcry about the way she had orchestrated the little cliffhanger she'd created there. And, her readers love her and love the stories and would have kept reading, But, sometimes you got to make that executive decision that, I was wondering about whether it was going to be acceptable to do what I was doing. And it turns out it wasn't. So there are ways to, luckily as digital readers, digital authors, we can update our series. We can update our books.
Right. And self-publishing specifically, like we can
Yeah.
pivot. So
we can take, we can take the first chapter of the next book and put it as the ending of this book because the cliffhanger was unacceptable. Right. And so hats off to Kat Healy for that, because she helped me learn that lesson. But there are a lot of things that you can do now that can help you write the book correctly to begin with, where you're landing all the tropes and you're landing all the messaging and got the characters dialed in. And before you ever have to spend hardly any money at all. And then so I think there's some options. Trying to use this funding ahead of time method also helps you build a better book in the long run.
I mean, like Lissa said, it's kind of like crowdsourcing the alpha beta feedback for your book. Like you have more access to readers than you've ever had before you have to put out your paperback, your hardcover, things that you can't, that like put your book out there to the world in a more permanent sense. Now, I do want to jump into some questions that we have from some of the people in the comments. So we have from William J. Long III. What places have you seen where readers are more open to investing time into new authors?
Definitely on the serial platforms. They're hungry for content. The authors they love can't write fast enough. I mean, even if they're uploading a small chapter a day, the readers are done in 10 minutes and hungry for more. So you can cultivate new readers there as a new author, I think, really well. There are other ways. You can serialize content just about anywhere. You can do it in a Facebook group. You can do it on, you can do it short format on a blog and point to it from social channels. There's a lot of ways to get your books out there and give a reader a chance to find you.
Yeah, that's true. Totally fair. Now, Beth Cox, one of our regulars, when we were talking about Kickstarter, she did mention, she heard the Kickstarter is a lot of work. So as someone who's kind of used Kickstarter successfully, what in terms of like effort investment, like was Kickstarter a lot of work on your behalf to establish, to get going, to make successful?
100%.
Yeah. No, that's not what we want to hear.
There's no
easy.
There's no easy button here. It's like, I wish I had the little easy button that goes, oh, that was easy. No, it's hard. It's hard all the way around. I think there's different rewards for the author as a Kickstarter person. I will say there's a few things that will make a Kickstarter a little easier on you and easier to be profitable. And that is plan up front for it to be profitable from the beginning. Nail down what your costs are and then add 20%. Understand you're going to spend a week shipping. If you have a moderately successful Kickstarter and you've got 50 boxes to ship, well, that's going to take you some time to box up and put the swag in there and make sure everybody's got the right things, going through all the orders and stuff, boxing it up, taping it up, putting a label on it, and driving it over to your post office. So that sometimes they'll pick up too. So, but I mean, these are all things that take time. And so there's a lot of hard work involved, but it can, if you build it profitably from the beginning, my Kickstarters run at a premium. So they're getting a signed paperback from me. I personalized them. So, I say, hey, Joe, thanks for backing the Kickstarter, Jamie Davis. It is each book is personalized to that individual as much as I can. There are little things you can do, but I also charge a premium beyond what I might charge at like a book fair where I'm just signing books and selling books that way. So, you can do things in a Kickstarter that you can't do anywhere else. These are people who want to back creators and are happy to back creators and are willing to do so sometimes at a little bit of a premium to know that, they had a piece of the creative process that way. So definitely it is a lot of hard work, but there are ways, and I'm not saying price gouge people, but charge an extra $5 for a paperback, and then make that extra $5 above what it would cost you to get it to you and ship it and everything else. And then put that towards your next book, or put that towards the launch of this book. Those are some of the things you can do.
Perfect. Now we do have a question from YouTube from Takara Mitsumi. How do you deal with readers who wait until the series is finished before they're willing to buy books? Seems to be a growing problem because readers are upset that authors stop mid-series. Is there anything that you can really do about that as an author, or is that just kind of a thing that you have to accept as part of reading culture these days?
Well, I'll say this. They exist. Those readers exist. There are readers out there who only read completed series. That's just who they are. And they don't want to get invested in something where they don't have an ending of some sort. And I completely understand that. However, I don't think it's growing. That's my sense. They exist. They're out there. When I finish a series, one of the first things I do is change the blurbs to say, this is book 1 in a completed series, because it catches those readers right away. So there are people who are going to read that way. But I don't believe the number is growing. Maybe they're more vocal, but I think they're a vocal minority. And there are plenty of people out there who are happy to read along with you, especially if you can get the pre-order for the next book up before that book launches. So that's a great trick, because it tells the reader, oh, there's more books. And when they get the next book, oh, there's another pre-order already ready to go. So there are ways to do this to really keep them in the pipeline, to know that you're actively writing this series and doing it. And, author notes at the end of the books are great as well. There are all sorts of ways to communicate with readers and let them know that you're not going to leave them abandoned when they get to the next book.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do have several people, once again, Mark, Beth, mentioning that they love the idea of updating their blurbs, letting people know that it is a complete series, because that is a selling point. Like, obviously, you're right. It's not, I don't think necessarily there is a lot of truth to the notion that is a growing contingency of readers, but it is still good for some readers to know. It's like, oh, if I'm getting into this, I can go from start to finish this weekend. I can just binge through this story. And for books, for series that aren't finished, I think that we've been talking all episode about getting your readers invested, creating that level of trust between author and reader. So I think that probably plays a role in making that easier for your reader to trust you.
I mean, to be fair, I'm the guy that waits until the whole series is out on streaming TV before I watch any of it. So I'm that guy in the streaming services, at least. I don't watch as they drip release it. I like to be able to kind of binge it in a weekend and stuff. So that's, it exists. But if it's 10% of the readers, they're, know that they're 10 or 15% of the readers, whatever the number is, I don't know. And be ready to capture them when the series is done.
Yeah. I do. So we've talked a lot about, obviously getting your book launch ready, and like ways to kind of make some of the money back. But let's talk a little bit briefly about the money that does go into it. How much should an author expect to be investing in a book launch that they want to make a success? Can you break down a little bit your advice of like what maybe, especially a beginner versus an advanced author, in terms of what they should be looking to invest to make their book launch work?
Well, for a beginning author, really the investment is in the things that go into publishing your book. Having a really great cover is paramount. And if you can't do anything else, scrape together whatever you can to get the best cover you can afford. And if you can't afford a great cover, get the best cover you can afford for now. And then when you have some extra money coming in from the book launch or from whatever, even if it's a year later, put a new cover on that book. My first series, the first 3 books are on their 4th cover version now. Every time I've updated that cover, those books jumped in sales.
Yeah, that's newsletter fodder right there.
It's newsletter
Hey,
fodder.
hey, I'm
It catches
rebranding.
people's attention that
Right.
they've been seeing this book because Amazon's been showing it to them because that's their genre preference, but they didn't like the cover. Suddenly the same book comes across with a new cover on it and they go, "Oh, that caught my eye." And that's all it takes sometimes.
It really is funny how you can't judge a book by its cover is such a like
No,
common
it's so not
saying.
true.
Yeah, it's completely like if there's one thing I've learned in my time with Draft Digital is like no, covers are absolutely how readers will judge your book. We're visual creatures. That's the first thing we see.
Well, I
Now,
mean, it's
just
part of your passive marketing strategy, just like the blurb. Like, if you get all of those things, they will continue to work for you the whole time. So,
Yeah. But I mean, so investing in things, invest in a good cover first. Invest in professional editing. See if you can get somebody after the edit to proofread for you if you can't afford it yourself. Sometimes other authors will swap proofreading services with you. You know, you proofread their book, they proofread your book, and they're not professional proofreaders, but they will catch the typos as they read, those kind of things. There are ways to do this on the, I won't say on the cheap, but on the inexpensive to get your book out there.
on
And
the
then when it comes to
affordable,
launch, yeah, it's affordable. And then when it comes to launch, I would definitely go not put money into advertising right away if it's your first book. Or even your second book. I'd wait until at least book 3 is out before you start advertising book 1. The only time I've done that differently is with my current series, and I had all 3 books up for pre-order, and I launched into black. So I had money to spend on driving some traffic to the first book in that series, knowing that I was getting pre-orders coming in, because some people just buy the book 1 and automatically pre-order the next 2 books sight unseen. They haven't read anything. Maybe they've read the preview, but that's it. And they go, "Oh, I'm getting all 3 of these books." And I see it all the time. So there are ways to do that, but I would just recommend, at least if it's your first book ever or first couple of books, don't spend a lot of money on advertising until you at least get book 3 out there, because then you'll have something to build upon and some read through to pay off for the advertising.
it's actually funny that you jumped right to that because that was one of I think one of our last questions we might take from the comments was from Beth, which is there something beginner authors should avoid in their book launches? So I guess it is like over investing in advertising before you have like a collection of books that is going to kind of draw readers in and have them invest in you.
Yeah, and I look, I was this way. I put my first book out there and I go, "That's it. I'm a New York Times best-selling author. It's just a matter of time. I can retire. I'm going to buy a boat. I'm going to no, it didn't happen for me. And no amount of advertising would have fixed that, by the way. I was a brand new author. People were not going to take a chance on me as much as they would now, being more established. So build on your brand, especially when you're brand new. I firmly believe the best thing that'll sell your book is your next book, because you're in a position where you're doubling your presence on the store just by putting a second book out.
well, and all of these places that you've mentioned, Ream, Kickstarter, all of those sort of act like your advertising funnel also,
Yes. Yeah.
because you
And
get to direct people to your website or
yeah, there
wherever
are
else.
ways to market without spending a dime. And you should spend the time and investment in learning how to do that early on in your career, rather than invest a lot of money in advertising, unless you come out of like the digital advertising marketplace in some way, that's your forte and you understand it. I wouldn't jump in there until maybe you're like book 10.
I love that advice because it scares me.
Yeah, no, and I think we all want the author career trajectory to be a sprint, but it is very much a marathon. And
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the best things that new authors especially can understand is that it is okay to not see immediate breakout success after your first book. That is not the norm, but you'll still find your place as an author over time. And just as one last thing to pop up, launching in the black. I thought you meant hiding from your spouse how much you spent on a book launch. We do not advocate for lying to your spouse, especially not on how much you spent your book launch. But hopefully, with today's advice, that will be a slightly lower number. So
Hopefully you can go to your spouse and say, hey, guess what? I made enough on day one to take us out to dinner tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that is certainly the ideal. For anyone who wants to just check out more about Jamie Davis, check out more of his wonderful books. We do have his website is jamiedavisbooks.com. And for anyone who is interested in Author Nation, the conference that's going to be taking place in November in Las Vegas, I almost said Los Angeles for some reason. You can go visit authornation.live. Like I said, it's wonderful people are running that event. It's a great place to form author community. Definitely something worth checking out.
And there's going to be, I know for a fact, there are going to be speakers there talking about all of the different platforms I've talked about here. So if you're interested in Kickstarter, if you're interested in serialized content, if you're interested in blogging, there are going to be people there talking about all these things. And so there's an opportunity for you to, if you're going to invest in something, I think that kind of an investment is well worthwhile.
Absolutely. Now, thank you so much, Jamie, for your insights. Thank you for just a very pleasant chat today. For anyone who is watching, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video to your author friends. Just all the classic internet video things that we would love for you to do. If you be sure to bookmark d2dlive.com so you can be here for the next live event that we do with another one of our wonderful industry insiders. And if you haven't already, be sure to sign up for a Draft to Digital account at draft2digital.com. That is the number 2 if you're looking to get started with your author career. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. And I hope my rambling has somehow helped somebody out there in the audience. We're in this together. It's a solitary career in many ways, but there's a huge and wonderful community of authors out there that I have, for the most part, found extremely supportive of my author journey. And I think you'll find the same is true as well.
Absolutely. Jamie, if you could stick with us just after we're about to play a quick 30-second ad for D2D Print. If you could hang out with us in the green room, and then we will chat a bit after the episode is over. But folks, thank you so much for joining us for today's D2D Live. We hope you have a wonderful day and happy writing.
Ebooks are great, but there's just something about having your words in print. Something you can hold in your hands, put on a shelf, sign for a reader. That's why we created D2D Print, a print-on-demand service that was built for you. We have free, beautiful templates to give your book a pro look, and we can even convert your ebook cover into a full wraparound cover for print. So many options for you and your books. And you can get started right now at draft2digital.com.